and let us all do we can to build a better future.
So we know firsthand that the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, Woogie Boogie Boogie, that's a scare to liberals, is doing an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. Okay, fine, whatever. It's a one big nothing burger. However, Matt Gaetz and the Freedom Caucus continue to put pressure on their GOP leader. So this is showing AOC, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and the squad how to get concessions from the leadership. So first, I want to give a huge shout out to Case Study QB. Please be sure to follow him on Twitter. He's doing fantastic work. So I want to pull this video up and talk about it. Let's play it in its full entirety so all of you can see firsthand the pressure that's being put on Kevin McCarthy.
But the so-called rebels who proved effective at delaying and pressuring McCarthy's original speaker vote are openly warning tonight that they will oust McCarthy if he does not act on this and other issues like spending and the term limits vote they want. That includes Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's dialing up pressure and invoking his own past record, exacting concessions from Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy celebrating a victory that almost didn't happen.
Gaetz, one of the leaders of the rebellion.
Mr. McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He will not have the votes tomorrow, and he will not have the votes next week, next month, next year.
I mean,
Wow.
this looks like a bit of a heated conversation. Yeah.
This is an incredible moment. McCarthy is now directly engaging Matt Gaetz.
Look at somebody's holding somebody back. Look at that. Oh, somebody just held somebody back.
Joining me now is that Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida. Thanks for making time for us on the beat tonight, sir.
My pleasure. Good to be with you, Ari.
Let's start with this rather newsworthy meeting today. What happened, and did you hear anything from the speaker that addresses these concerns you've gone so public with?
No, I was quite disappointed that at our meeting there wasn't a discussion about how to bring Speaker McCarthy into compliance with that agreement that we hammered out in January. And thanks for not over-torquing impeachment when it comes to my particular grievances. Of course, I think we need fulsome and robust oversight, and I do think that Joe Biden deserves impeachment. But that wasn't a part of the deal that we crafted in January, and it would be dishonest for me to represent that it was. We talked about balanced budgets, term limits, single subject spending bills. Those things have not happened. And frankly, a lot of my constituents over the August break were asking me if I was really serious about the deal, being that we have not done nearly enough to enforce it.
Yeah, you mentioned those items, those terms. Everyone can have a rich sort of debate about them, but we'll put up on the screen some of what you have now claimed this week, that these were things you guys were supposed to get. A vote on the term limits. We know how long people staying in office is controversial.
Now, look, again, a lot of these politicians, the reason why I let this play at least for 2 minutes in, just so we could hear his side of the story. Now, maybe this is, again, another act that we're all too familiar with in Washington, D.C., where these politicians want to, put on this show or boost up their political image, their career, their points. It's just, that's the kind of stuff that happens that we see firsthand. But in comparison to, again, Representative Matt Gaetz, to AOC or the squad members, notice the amount of push that he's able to get. Now, again, with Republicans, they can do this because, again, it's all one big show. It's the fact that many of their donors are interconnected, intertwined, and they don't have these stringent rules that the Democrats have. Again, Nancy's power is still very, very present, even though Hakeem Jeffries is now the new leader of the House. AOC and the squad would never do anything like this on national television because, again, they're paid to be the sheepdogs, to herd all of you into the Democratic Party and to make a false promise that they'll follow through. Whereas Matt, he's able to get away with a little bit more because there isn't that image of, well, we're here to make everyone feel good. No, here's the thing. These are kind of reasonable things, especially term limits. Especially, I can agree with some on the term limits. Again, we want to see term limits. The January 6th footage, as time progressed on, the corporate media spin is breaking. And look, Hunter Biden, I believe there needs to be accountability towards the Bidens and their corruption. Well, I believe there should be accountability and for all these politicians and how inherently corrupt they are. But that's a story for another day. But these are reasonable things to really bring up.
Controversial, cutting spending. You mentioned the Jan 6 footage and subpoenas for Hunter Biden. What is most important to you, and what would actually, in your view, affect the lives of the American people if you got any of these?
No, undeniably, it would be the spending. I mean, we're about to hit the moment in time where we're going to run $2 trillion annual deficits at a time when much of the world is de-dollarizing, from BRICS to the African Union to more energy being sold in the yuan with the new deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So as the world de-dollarizes, I think that it's really dangerous for us to be running up these deficits. If Speaker McCarthy brought us individual spending bills over the course of this initial year, he would not be facing the challenge that he faces now from those of us who believe he hasn't been honest. And I know term limits sort of is a talking point to people in the media, but I got to tell you, Ari, as I travel the country and go home, people want to vote on term limits. And I know it's not going to pass initially, but in the words of the great coach Bobby Bowden, sometimes you got to lose by a lot, lose by a little, then win by a little and win by a lot.
I'm not a Republican voter, but I will say the fact that Republicans are actually carrying this idea now, again, sincerity and follow through is key, and consistency is key. Term limits. Let's talk about it. Well, when you have Turtle Boy Mitch McConnell to stop and stare like a statue, and when you have Dianne Feinstein, who has she doesn't know where she's at. Okay, there's no nice way to put it. Or we have Joe Biden, who says, and look, I've had my older relatives, may they rest in peace, say these exact same things. I don't know about you guys, but I'm about to go to bed. I mean, they're old, and they've been in power for decades, 20 to 30 plus years. It's pathetic. Term limits, term limits, term limits. Okay? We have politicians who've made a career out of screwing us all over. The reason why things are so bad is because these politicians who have maintained their power. Nancy Pelosi, hagbag Nancy Pelosi, is going to run for re-election. Why? Why, Nancy? Why? Biden running for re-election. Why? These people are old. And I'm not saying old people can't do things. I've seen people in their 90s be sharp and smart and aware, but these politicians that we have, they're in a serious decline, and they're supposed to represent the largest superpower in the world.
Okay. You mentioned this agreement. You're on record and you're on the House floor this week saying he's violating the agreement. Now, one problem with that is the public still hasn't seen the full written agreement. The last time you were here, we discussed that. Let me play a little bit of that. Take a look.
Point blank, Congressman, have you or your staff seen this additional agreement in writing in any form?
Yeah, it took multiple forms. There was specifically a side-by-side sheet where we made offers to McCarthy.
Why not have you and your colleagues who negotiated it just release what was agreed to at the time in writing?
Again, I have no objection to that. I don't know that I still have a copy.
Wouldn't it be better to finally and fully transparently release the whole thing so both your constituents, Republicans, and the public could see what now you claim is his violation of these assorted pledges?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Chip Roy keeps my copy. Tim Wrights at the Freedom Caucus has copies as well. But keep this in mind, Ari. No one is disputing the authenticity of the terms that I have laid out. You know, Kevin McCarthy has 200 allies in Congress, and no,
I'll let you finish on that.
It's important. It's really important.
I'll let you get. But Chip Roy, this is up to Chip Roy to release your.
Again, it's notice how again corporate media is trying to silence it. Now again, Matt Gaetz is no saint here. Okay, he's part of the same system here too. But I find it interesting, the pressure that's being put onto the Speaker of the House. Now, we've seen this before. No, not by Democrats, but remember Boohoo Bomer and his dealings with the Republican Tea Party? Yeah, remember that lackluster thing, that mediocre movement? Yeah, and it was. He was constantly smacked around by them. I'm pretty sure he still has PTSD, still thinking about the Tea Party movement and all the times they made his life unbearable. Hell, I think he started drinking more when he was dealing with them. But see, that's what we want to see. I was actually hoping, I had the audacity to hope in 2018 that maybe AOC and the squad would do that too. I got to take another L, don't I? I'm constantly getting smacked around, constantly getting disrespected by these politicians. Hell, we all were. Why is it that we see this from the GOP, but not from the DNC? Well, it's very simple. The DNC is organized and centralized to put on this presentation of unity. Republicans can more or less do this. And the reason why is because the Democrats won't really push back against it either. It's one big show that we're witnessing here.
For agreement?
Well, I don't have a copy of it. I know it exists, and no one is disputing the terms. So you are picking a fight here that not even Kevin McCarthy and his top allies quibble about. Someone in the press should ask Kevin McCarthy.
Okay.
Did you commit to a term?
We're asking everybody. We're asking everybody who will come on. Are you calling on Congressman Chip Roy to release the agreement tonight?
Well, I leave that up to him. I have no problem with it. If Chip Roy releases the agreement, you will find it is entirely consistent with what I've said. Matter of fact, Chip Roy was asked about the agreement at a press conference earlier this week, and he said, in fact, that all the claims that I'd made about term limits, balanced budgets, and single subject spending bills were in fact reduced to writing. Again, let's get to something that people are actually quibbling about, so we can have a more interesting discussion.
Well, we're going back and forth. But if it's your copy, as you say, if it's part of the agreement you and this group reached, and we showed the sound, and you talking about how important this all has been, why don't you get your copy released?
Again, I just told you, I don't have a copy, but no one is disputing this. And by the way, you don't even have to look at a written agreement, because back in January of this year, these things didn't just emerge out of nowhere. We talked about them at the time. So in January, we were saying balanced budgets, term limits, single subject spending bills. Then again, we've said it. And now, unfortunately, at the meeting this morning, Kevin McCarthy was non-responsive. I can't quite tell if he's in the denial phase or the anger phase, but we've got to get to bargaining pretty soon in order to resolve this.
We always appreciate Elizabeth Kubler-Ross reference around here in the many stages of going through something, sir. Let me play for you what the speaker says. We are hearing from you, and you are saying that he is blatantly violating agreements he made on those votes and other things. In fairness, I also want to play what he's saying for your response. Here was very specifically Speaker McCarthy talking about you today.
Okay, so listen, here's Cenk Uygur's favorite villain. Oh, heaven forbid Kevin McCarthy becomes Speaker of the House. I don't envy Kevin McCarthy one bit. I actually am secretly enjoying this attack, because again, I always have to wonder if the Democrats, at least the progressives, were ever to find their courage, would they ever do something like this? The answer would probably be no, but what a sight it would be. I would love to see Nancy Pelosi get a panic attack.
But let me be very clear with you. Matt is upset about an ethics complaint. I don't care what they threaten against me. I am not going to interject into an independent committee like the ethics committee. So they can do whatever they want, but I'm going to maintain this meeting.
The speaker says this is really about an ethics complaint. Your response?
My response is really going to surprise you. This is about term limits, a balanced budget amendment, and single subject spending bills, just like I've been saying for an entire year.
Now, I want to pull up something else here too. Shout out to Roger Meadows, good friend of the show. Again, just something that we should see, because again, it is worthwhile to bring up and to address. But here, this is a tweet, a little tweet on Easy Street from Representative Jamal Bowman. Holy cow, all hell is breaking loose on the floor of the House. Matt Gaetz is threatening to launch a mutiny against Kevin McCarthy and oust him out from power. To the Speaker of the House, this is what you created. You are the worst kind of coward, and now you reap what you sow. Oh, my goodness. To which Roger Meadows says, this is exactly why we supported and voted for you and the squad to do Pelosi, exactly what Matt Gaetz is doing to McCarthy, not to get in line. This is what you call speaking truth to power. True Republicans don't offer us anything, but they won't back down either. You can learn from this. And never forget this, folks. Because remember, please follow Roger Meadows on Twitter. This is his Twitter account. Again, Roger 2.0. Please follow him. He's the one who introduced me to citizen ballot initiatives. It wasn't too long ago, I believe maybe last year in the fall or early summer, something like that, where Roger Meadows and a few other people confronted Representative Jamal Bowman. And I remember Jamal Bowman saying, hey, you guys shouldn't confront me like this. You guys shouldn't meet me up here like this. Well, they deserve to be confronted. Roger Meadows, being a constituent and a voter in the great state of New York, has every right to talk to a politician and ask them, hey, how come you're not following through on promises X, Y, and Z? I want an explanation in 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's fair enough. So I'm not going to sit here and start wagging my finger at Matt Gaetz for actually having the audacity and the courage to actually confront his leadership, because that's what we should want out of our elected officials. Now, again, let's be clear here. This is one big show, but let's have democracy in the chat. Do you ever think that should the Democrats hypothetically maybe regain the House, Hakeem Jeffries will be the new speaker in this hypothetical scenario? Do you see AOC or the other members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus standing up and demanding Medicare for all, student debt forgiveness? Type 1 for yes, kid, we will get that. You watch, you wait and see. A type 2, no, they're going to follow orders. What are you talking about? Stop asking that question. They're not going to do that, kid. They're not going to do that. They're never going to do that. Let's go back to this video.
I am the most investigated man in the entire Congress. And right there, you saw Kevin McCarthy lying like a dead dog, because I have never asked him to interfere in any ethics matter. I had the FBI and DOJ, who hate me, investigate me for 3 years. You covered it nearly nightly. And even you acknowledged at the end that my denials held up consistently. And the people who spread lies about me are sitting in a federal prison right now because they were part of a criminal scheme, not me.
In fairness, it is true the DOJ closed the case. As you mentioned, we reported that. It is interesting to see you go to this point with the speaker. He seems to be implying that you are not doing these things for the reasons you say, but that you were requesting, or perhaps through other people requesting, some special handling or treatment in the ethics complaint. You're saying that's a lie tonight.
That is an abject lie from a sad and pathetic man who lies to hold on to power. He lied to get power in January when he made this agreement, and he's lying now about the basis for breach. And you know what? Eventually, the lying has to come to an end, and the votes are going to start on a motion to vacate. I certainly hope that instead of that path, the Speaker comes into compliance on term limits, balanced budgets, and single subject spending bills. And guess what? If that happens, there will be no motion to vacate, which would totally cut against his argument that this is somehow about an ethics matter of like the lies of yesteryear.
And again, looking at this, it's refreshing and hilarious to watch our politicians fail, constantly screwing up. And it's good to see at least some kind of entertainment, that's the best I could say this, in Washington, D.C., where we see a speaker being challenged. Maybe in an alternate universe, in another dimension, maybe if the Hadron Collider in Fermilab goes active again, we might be able to see into a world where, hey, AOC and the squad actually have a backbone and actually push back against the establishment and win for a change. What a wonderful sight that would be. But again, it's all in imagination. We may never see that kind of world because, again, our politicians don't have the courage or the strength or the mindset to actually do the right thing. They can't do it because they don't have what it takes. Would it be interesting to see McCarthy, just like how he's going after Biden, also struggle with his party? Yes. And is this probably a wake-up call for Americans to get involved more? Or is it that break away from the two-party system and start building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C.? The answer is yes. This is a wake-up call. The whole system is inherently corrupt. Now, occasionally these politicians will say things that we agree with, but again, follow through and consistency is key. Do I think Representative Matt Gaetz is sincere and honest to actually call for term limits? We've been lied to by these politicians before, so the answer is no. Again, show me. I want to be proven wrong. I dreamed to actually say, wow, I wasn't expecting that from a politician. But I have yet to say that on a show. I mean, occasionally here and there, there's been some instances, but again, follow through and consistency is like a drop of water in a bucket, and the bucket isn't even full yet. AOC, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, everyone else in the fantastic Congressional Progressive Caucus. Why did we elect you if you're not going to fight? Why is it that we see more fight and passion from Republican lawmakers? I mean, is it just one big show? Or are you just happy to be collecting your 6-figure salary and having all your other wonderful social benefits? Shout out to Farron. You know, when we had her on the show, she would always say this. These politicians, they think about their careers 2 years down the road, 4 years down the road, 6 years down the road, 8 years down the road. It's one big club, and we ain't in it.